So, let's get something straight. If you're one of those people who watch Cole Palmer stumble through interviews and think, wow, he must not be the sharpest tool in the shed, I've got news for you. It's time to sit down, pay attention, and realize that Cole Palmer is one of the most intelligent players in the game today. And I'm not talking about what happens off the pitch. This guy's football IQ is off the charts. Since he was a kid, Palmer has been putting up ridiculous numbers. But if you look at any scouting report, the first thing they highlight isn't his dribbling or his goal-scoring ability. It's his mind. The kid is a footballing genius. Let's rewind to 2010, when Palmer was just a kid in Wythenshawe juggling after-school detention, watching his dad play Sunday League, and grinding it out in grassroots football. Even back then, everyone around him knew he was special. His first coach once said, "Every game, I'd catch myself about to yell, 'What are you doing?' only to realize 5 seconds later that this kid had just played a pass I wouldn't have even seen." By that age, Liverpool, Manchester City, and his childhood club, Manchester United, were already chasing him. But here's the kicker. When United told him he'd only get a trial, Palmer didn't hesitate. He turned his back on them and joined City instead. He wasn't about to let anyone slow him down. But it wasn't always smooth sailing. In 2018, the Man City Academy held a meeting to decide which players to cut, and Palmer's name was on the list. At the time, his teammates were growing bigger and stronger, while his performances had dipped over 2 seasons. In an era where everyone was obsessed with fast, dominant dribblers, Palmer was on the verge of being let go. That's when Jason Wilcox, the academy director, stepped in and overruled the decision. When asked what he saw in Palmer, Wilcox said, "He's extremely clever. You guys can't even see the things he's seeing." And that's the thing about Cole Palmer. His brilliance isn't always flashy or obvious. It's in the details, the vision, the decisions that most people wouldn't even notice. So if you're still doubting him, it's time to wake up. This kid isn't just good. He's a footballing prodigy. Over the next 12 months, after years of going home and telling his father he just wished he was bigger, Cole Palmer experienced a dramatic growth spurt, shooting up from 5'7" to 6'2", almost overnight. And with that physical transformation came a meteoric rise in his game. Just 1 year later, Palmer wasn't just captaining Manchester City's under-18s to a league title. He was dominating, racking up 20 goal contributions in just 1,100 minutes. He also led them to the FA Youth Cup final, where he delivered a performance for the ages. After assisting the equalizer, he scored the winning goal and lifted his jersey to reveal a tribute to Jeremy Whiston, his former teammate who tragically took his own life after being released by City during the pandemic. As Palmer later reflected, "Off the pitch, I may not be the loudest guy. I don't say much. But once I'm on it, it all comes out." And over the next 3 years, that's exactly what happened. The only problem? The recognition he deserved never seemed to follow. The following season, Palmer began training regularly with the first team while still playing mostly for the under-23s. Even as a 19-year-old, he was dismantling players who should have been 4 age groups above him, notching 19 goal contributions in just 1,200 minutes and leading his team to another league title. Yet all Pep Guardiola offered him was a single League Cup appearance and a mere 8 minutes in the Champions League. The year after that, Palmer scored his first senior team goal, a milestone moment. A month later, after a match against Burnley, he sprinted off the pitch the second the final whistle blew, grabbed his coat, downed a cereal bar, and bolted out the back door, leaving Jack Grealish and Phil Foden staring at him like he'd lost his mind. An hour later, he was back with the under-23s, asking the manager if he could still start in their upcoming match despite having already played that day. By the end of that match, Palmer had scored a hat-trick. Yet, when the press approached him afterward, all he had to say was, If there's a game happening somewhere, I want to be in it. This isn't a big deal. I think a couple of other lads have done it too, minus the hat trick. Despite the buzz around his performance, and despite earning a few more first-team call-ups, things didn't change much for Palmer. Just 3 days later, he scored in the Champions League, and in January, he returned to take the Man of the Match award in his first game of the year. But that would be his last appearance for a while. A foot injury sidelined him for 3 months. While Pep Guardiola was busy battling Liverpool for the title, Palmer's remarkable contributions went unnoticed. He had been averaging a goal contribution every 85 minutes under Guardiola's guidance, yet all he kept hearing was the same old promise. Next year, it will be your turn. When City shipped out Gabriel Jesus and Raheem Sterling in the transfer market, it seemed like the perfect opportunity for Palmer to step into the spotlight. But that's not how it played out. 10 months later, the 21-year-old collected a Champions League medal as Manchester City completed the second treble in English football history. But the truth was, Palmer had virtually nothing to do with it, and he knew it. Looking at his 25 appearances that season, you might think things had changed for him. But in reality, the kid who once seemed desperate to play anywhere, anytime, was still waiting for his moment. By now, Cole Palmer was averaging just 25 minutes of game time whenever Pep Guardiola gave him a chance. It was clear, either things were going to change, or Palmer would have to take matters into his own hands. 12 days after the Champions League final, Palmer arrived at the Under-21 European Championship. Though he started slowly, everything changed in the semi-finals. When Morgan Gibbs-White missed a penalty, risking England's best chance at winning the trophy for the first time in 39 years, Palmer stepped up. He assisted the opener, scored the second, and then set up the third goal, leading England to the final. 3 days later, he sealed the deal with a stunning free kick, winning the tournament and becoming a European champion on his own terms. Despite his success, Palmer's situation at Manchester City remained frustrating. He was a City Academy graduate with 13 years of service to the club, yet his opportunities were limited. Even after his late goal against Arsenal put City ahead in the Community Shield, only for them to collapse in the final minutes, and his crucial goal in the European Super Cup saved the club from starting the season with 2 trophy losses, Palmer returned to Manchester to an uncertain future. Instead of being celebrated, Pep Guardiola, the same man who had promised Palmer a starting role after Riyad Mahrez's departure, offered him a loan move to Burnley. Palmer's response was firm. "No, I want to leave." For weeks, City tried to convince him to stay. But just as negotiations seemed to be progressing, the club signed 21-year-old winger Jeremy Doku for €65 million. With 11 months left until the Euros, and Palmer still without a single international cap, this was the final straw. He knew he had to make a move to secure his place in the England squad. 4 days later, reports emerged that Chelsea, after failing to sign Michael Olise, were in advanced talks for a mystery attacker. The pieces were falling into place for Palmer's next chapter. Just as fans began speculating about which big-name player Chelsea might sign, the announcement came. Their mystery man was Cole Palmer. To say some fans were disappointed would be an understatement. Chelsea had just spent €50 million on a 21-year-old who still lived with his parents. The squad already had Madueke, Mudryk, Sterling, and Kunku, and now they were shelling out a fortune for a player with just 1,400 minutes of senior football to his name. For context, when Phil Foden was the same age, he had already racked up 7,000 minutes. It was hard to argue that Palmer, after Chelsea had spent over $1 billion on transfers, would be the one to fix the most dysfunctional squad in the league. But then, Palmer did what he does best. After 3 substitute appearances, including a strange debut as a central midfielder, he was given his first start. With Chelsea needing a goal, Palmer delivered, nutmegging a defender and setting up the team's only goal. His performance earned him the Player of the Match award and sent Chelsea through to the next round of the League Cup. Suddenly the headlines changed. Cole Palmer cannot be kept on the bench, the papers declared. Pochettino must have been paying attention because, in the very next game, Palmer was in the starting lineup. It started with a goal and an assist against Burnley. Then came a goal and a draw against Arsenal, an assist against Blackburn, and a man-of-the-match performance with another goal and assist in a thrilling win over Tottenham. Before long, the doubters were forced to eat their words. As Pochettino himself told the press, he arrived on deadline day, and he's already playing like he's been here for 10 years. However, the next game would be Palmer's ultimate test, a showdown against his former club, Manchester City. Chelsea went into the match as clear underdogs, but what followed was one of the most chaotic and thrilling games of the season. With the scoreline hanging in the balance, Chelsea's chance to stun City with a draw came down to a penalty in the 95th minute. As 40,000 fans held their breath, Palmer stepped up, asking Raheem Sterling to let him take the spot kick. Without hesitation, he smashed the ball into the top corner, sealing a dramatic 4-4 draw. When reporters later asked him, "Did you feel nervous?" Palmer simply shrugged and replied, "Not really." You can say what you want about Palmer, but while there are plenty of dribbling prodigies out there, finding one who combines technical skill with the vision and composure of a seasoned veteran is truly rare. And Palmer is exactly that. Special. So special, in fact, that just 2 months after leaving Manchester City and being given the freedom to shine, he earned his first call-up to the England national team. Back at Chelsea, Palmer quickly silenced any doubts that he could only score penalties. He netted a crucial goal at Old Trafford, then carried the team on his back with 2 goals and an assist in a hard-fought 3-2 win over Luton. The second goal was an absolute stunner, earning him a nomination for Goal of the Month. It was also the first time he unveiled his now iconic celebration, though, ironically, it wasn't even his idea. He was simply imitating his friend Morgan Rogers from Middlesbrough. But given that fans had already nicknamed him Cold Palmer, it couldn't have been more fitting. With those contributions, Palmer achieved something remarkable. After just 12 starts for Chelsea, he became only the 5th under-21 player in the club's history to reach double figures for goal contributions. As Cesc Fabregas put it, just last year, he wasn't even being considered to play in the Champions League final. Then, all of a sudden, he moves to Chelsea, and now he's the Player of the Year. While that might have seemed like an exaggeration at the time, the best was yet to come. Palmer started the year strong, with 3 goals and an assist in his first 4 matches. But then came a slight dip in form, just 1 goal and 2 assists in his next 7 starts. Despite his individual performances, Chelsea as a team were struggling. They had won only 8 of their previous 21 matches, sitting 11th in the table with a negative goal difference. They had more defeats than wins, and were closer to the bottom than the top. To make matters worse, they had just missed their chance at silverware, losing the League Cup final to Liverpool. The only way to salvage their season was to climb the table and secure a European qualification spot. But to do that, they needed a miracle. Or, as it turned out, they needed Cole Palmer. In the first game of their crucial run, Palmer assisted the late equalizer against Brentford, snatching a draw from the jaws of defeat. By the way, remember when I mentioned he had become the 5th under-21 Chelsea player to reach 10 goal contributions in the Premier League? Well, by this point, he had already shattered Arjen Robben's record, which had stood for nearly 20 years. The next game saw Palmer deliver again, with a goal and an assist in a hard-fought 3-2 win over Newcastle. 6 days later, against second-tier Leicester in the FA Cup, Palmer scored one goal and started the counterattack that led to another. But with the game tied in injury time, thanks in part to Sterling missing a penalty Palmer had allowed him to take, Palmer stepped up once more, delivering a stunning backheel assist to secure the win. Finally, against Burnley, Palmer scored another brace, salvaging a 2-2 draw and proving yet again that he was the spark Chelsea desperately needed. By this point, Cole Palmer had convinced half the country that as long as his legs held up, Chelsea wouldn't taste defeat again. As for the other half, well, the next game was against Manchester United, and Palmer was about to prove them wrong too. It started perfectly for Chelsea, with Palmer scoring a penalty to put them 2-0 up within 20 minutes. But then, true to their season-long form, Chelsea began to unravel. By the time the match reached injury time, they were somehow trailing 3-2. Just when everyone thought the game was over, Diogo Dalot brought down Noni Madueke in the box. Up stepped Palmer, who coolly slotted home the penalty to level the score. But he wasn't done. A couple of minutes later, he completed his hat trick with a deflected strike, snatching an unbelievable 4-3 win for Chelsea. Yet, even that wasn't the peak of his season. In the next game, Palmer delivered another crucial assist in a hard-fought draw. Then came the match against Everton, a performance so extraordinary that words hardly do it justice. It began with a sublime backheel pass to Nicholas Jackson, followed by a picture-perfect left-footed curler into the top corner. 5 minutes later, Palmer popped up with a header to double his tally. And just 11 minutes after that, he intercepted a pass, spotted the goalkeeper off his line, and unleashed a stunning 40-yard strike to complete his hat trick. It was the fastest perfect hat trick in Premier League history, the first-half hat trick in Chelsea's history, and made Palmer the first Chelsea player to score in 7 consecutive home games. He also became only the second player in the club's history to score hat tricks in back-to-back home matches. But Palmer wasn't finished. When Jackson and Madueke began arguing over who would take a late penalty, Palmer stepped in, grabbed the ball, pushed them aside, and calmly converted it. Because of course he did. By this point, Palmer had matched Dimitar Berbatov as the second player in Premier League history to score the most penalties without a single miss. He was also level with Erling Haaland as the league's top scorer, despite taking only 60 shots compared to Haaland's 101. As Alan Shearer put it, we're talking about a player with massive mental strength. There isn't a moment where he isn't calm and measured. Or, as The Athletic described him, to watch Palmer is to watch a footballer who thinks at a higher speed and definition than those around him. That's his football IQ. He slows down the mind's eye and finds space where there shouldn't be any. To cap off the season, Palmer delivered yet again. He scored against West Ham, assisted in a 3-2 win, netted another goal in a 2-1 victory, and provided the assist for the winner in Chelsea's final match of the season. This incredible run helped Chelsea go 12 league matches unbeaten, finishing with 63 points. Of those 63 points, Palmer was directly responsible for 27. Without his goal contributions, Chelsea would have been just above Nottingham Forest, hovering dangerously close to the relegation zone. Instead, they finished 6th, securing direct qualification for the Conference League. In what was essentially his debut season, Palmer contributed to 48% of Chelsea's goals, more than any other player in the league. With 33 goal contributions in 33 matches, he trailed only Cristiano Ronaldo and Erling Haaland among under-22 players in Premier League history. And this was despite playing just 74% of the available minutes due to his late transfer and initial doubts about his role. If you adjust his stats to account for playing time, Palmer's numbers surpass every Chelsea player in the modern era, except for Didier Drogba in 2010. Not even prime Eden Hazard could match this version of Cole Palmer. While Erling Haaland ultimately beat Palmer to the Golden Boot, let's not forget, we're talking about a goal-scoring machine. If you take Haaland out of the equation, Palmer's tally of 22 goals was just one shy of the highest goal scorer over the previous decade, who had 23. Regardless of the Golden Boot race, when the award season arrived, Palmer's brilliance couldn't be ignored. He was named Chelsea's Player of the Season, twice, once by the fans and again by his teammates. He also took home the Premier League's Young Player of the Year award and the PFA Fans Player of the Year, narrowly missing out on the main award to Phil Foden. But here's a question. Would the outcome have been the same if Palmer and Foden had switched teams? It's hard to say. When asked about Palmer, the one who got away, Pep Guardiola admitted, "If I had given him the same minutes I gave Foden, he'd still be here. That's my responsibility." And yet, as I've said so many times before, Palmer wasn't done. He achieved his ultimate goal, a call-up to the England squad for the Euros after James Maddison's injury. However, despite making the squad, Palmer barely got a chance to shine. He played just 20 minutes across 3 group stage matches and didn't earn a single start throughout the entire tournament. Despite limited playing time, Palmer made a big impact at the Euros. In the semi-final, he set up Watkins' winning goal to send England to the final. In the final, he scored a late equalizer with just 4 touches, though England ultimately lost. Few players deserved the trophy more than him. Now, in his second season, Palmer is thriving with a goal and 4 assists in 5 games. Rumors of a move swirl, but one thing is clear. Palmer thrives under pressure, no matter where he plays.